Srikanth, hi, good to have you with us. How have you been?
Hey, Ashu, it's great to be here. I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Doing wonderful, Srikanth. I am particularly excited about this conversation. My team, kind of hates me for doing this, right? Saying this because every single conversation that I have, I am usually excited about it, and largely because I've had the fortune of knowing such founders, who I've interviewed much closely, right? And that just makes me so much more excited about the entire conversation that we're going to undertake, right? And this is going to be available for many people, right? To be motivated about, to be excited about, and to kind of pursue and follow their passion, right? This is particularly exciting because you've been a bootstrap entrepreneur, you've chosen that path, and you've kind of branched out as a brand into doing many things, and you've been through your set of learnings, right? So this makes it a very special conversation in that sense, right? But before we do that, right? Why don't you do a quick round of introduction, Srikanth, and from there we start.
Yeah, perfect. So I'm Srikanth Acharya. I'm the CEO at Offineeds.com, a leading corporate gifting company based in Bangalore, Hyderabad, and Chennai in South India. And I'm a very passionate entrepreneur, love travel and food. I'm an avid learner,
Right,
and I just love B2B marketing and business in general. That's
right.
who I am.
Interesting, Srikanth. Srikanth, how did my first question, right? How did Offi Needs happen, right? And a lovely name that's there, right? How did Offi Needs happen, right? Tell me a little more about that.
Yeah, so actually I turned an entrepreneur as a result of an April Fool's prank that I played in 2005.
Right,
Uh, I'm an engineer by qualification and was working at Infosys as a software developer in 2005 when I played an April Fool's prank with my friends and colleagues and everybody. And I said, I'm going to quit and I'm going to start a business on my own.
right,
Now, back then, entrepreneurship was not so common.
sure,
It was not, and Infosys was an amazing company to be at. And that time, it just had 30,000 something employees. Now it's got
right,
2 lakh plus employees, and
right,
people thought I was crazy. And um, everybody asked, what are you going to do, right? So
right,
and I got a t-shirt from Infosys 1 week prior to me playing that prank, which had the Infosys logo. And that's where I heard the term corporate gifts. And
right,
some weekend conversation with a friend, I learned a little bit more about that industry, which was very nascent. There were very
right,
few players and so on. So I just said, I'm going to start a corporate gifting company. So people, I thought it's just a matter of an hour or something where somebody will catch my prank. and,
right,
and nobody did. They just went on asking questions. Who's going
right.
to be your customer? How you're going to acquire? Where are you going to source from? Who, what products? How you're going to sell? Why do you want to do this, that? And answering all those questions just out of the blue. End of the day, I had a business plan in place.
Right,
I'd made up all of this stuff.
right,
Then next day, I told everybody I was joking. It was just a prank. I'm not serious. But then I
right,
got thinking, and I was like, okay, it's not that I'm a great software developer anyway,
right,
and well, I don't have a huge education loan or something on me, and so why don't I give this a try? So me and
right,
my friend, we quit our jobs and we started a corporate gifting company, a small one,
right.
and we called it Gift Wrapped back then.
Interesting. Right,
And in 2014, we decided to diversify into becoming a B2B e-commerce company, and we
right,
wanted to do more than corporate gifting and become an office supplies company,
right,
corporate gifts, stationery, office supplies, pantry, all of those kind of things. And that
right.
was the aim with which we rebranded ourselves as Offineeds.com.
Interesting.
We got
Right,
a .com domain, we got a
right,
nice one.
right.
And but then we went back into corporate gifting. We scrapped all of the other ideas, but we retained the brand name. So that's a
Interesting.
quick story about Offineeds.
Interesting. And I think the 2014 pivot that you kind of spoke about, right? That was an interesting phase, right? Where
Yeah.
I think you wanted to sort of shape up the business in a very different way, right? I think you aspirationally were in a different zone, right? Tell us a little more about that.
Yeah, so 2000, so an interesting story. Somewhere around 2010 or 11 or 12 or something, if you remember, Mintra used to be in the merchandise and corporate gifting business. Not
Right,
many people know that, but before Mintra became what it is today, in 2008, 2009, Mintra was a corporate gifting competitor. They used
right,
to run merchandise stores and all of those
right,
kind of things.
right,
And I remember Mukesh Bansal met us and he wanted to partner, he wanted to collaborate. And back then we didn't have the maturity. Nobody knew what is funding. We didn't
right,
understand what these guys are doing, and
right,
so on. We didn't kind of sign up on that offer.
right,
And then Mintra blew up. They got funded and it became what it is today, right? So in 2014 it looked like everybody is getting funded, so we need
right,
to jump onto the bandwagon too. And corporate gifting in a proper brick and mortar model was not fundable,
right,
so we thought we should convert we wanted to leverage the relationships and the connections that we have with corporates,
Right.
and offer more on a platform that is measurable, that is scalable, that can be
Right.
valued, and there is a tech play to it, and so on. And that's where we created Offineeds.com. The idea was to the vision was what Amazon is to consumers, we wanted to be that to offices
Right.
and businesses.
Interesting.
Anything
Right.
that offices want, starting with stationery and office supplies and
Interesting.
pantry and all of those kind of things, and then
Right.
spread it out to just about anything that businesses need.
Right.
That was the idea. But
Mm-hmm.
we sucked at execution. I spent more time going after investors than going after customers.
Right.
A lot of things that I think I did wrong, and yeah, so we went back to focusing on what we know best, and here
Right.
we are.
I like the way you put it, right? That you wanted to focus back on the business. I think that's essentially what even investors are investing in, right? And I think this is one business that I think nobody's really been able to crack, right? I think many people have tried, but I don't think anybody's made a significant mark. I mean, there could be companies which are doing a reasonable volume, but I don't think anybody's kind of been able to crack this, right? Not even the larger ones, right? For some reason, this has been a very different animal, right? But Shrikant, coming back to corporate gifting, right? I think corporate gifting has evolved, right? From possibly when you started, right, to what
Yes.
it is today, right? I mean, there is just so much more excitement to it, right? I think it's kind of moved away from only being gifting into being an overall engagement play, right? And a huge recognition play and possibility, right? And that many organizations are using, right? How has that landscape changed, right? And how has that changed your relationship with many players that you are currently engaged with, right? How has that shaped up over a period of time?
Okay. So, employee engaged, the corporate gifting business, right? Earlier, it used to be about sending out gifts to pamper people, to make them feel good and build relationships and those kind of things. But in the last 10 years, a lot has changed, and brand building has become has become the center of everything that we do, right? So what can you do when it comes to brand building? There's a lot of elements to brand building. Broadly, you can call it above the line and below the line. Above the line is all these straightforward ads that you run and so on. So BTL are all these experiential and the subtle things that you do to build the brand. So corporate gifting kind of falls in that, and it swag, as it's called, or merchandise as you call it, becomes a very, very important element of brand building. The reason,
Right.
especially with products, our focus is on mostly when it comes to merchandise broadly, there are three kinds of
Right.
people who gifts are given to. One is employees, another is
Mm-hmm.
customers, another
Right.
is dealers. And if you're
Right.
a training organization, there are students like colleges and everything. There could be
Right.
students, right?
Right.
So our focus at Offineeds, we focus mostly on employee driven corporate gifting.
Interesting.
So what happens for most employees when you talk about the employer brand or the company, right? It's a very
Right.
intangible concept,
Right.
right? What is the company? Is it that building? Is it that logo? Is it the
Right.
people? It's an intangible part of it, right? So when you
Right.
get merchandise is the only thing you hold in your hand, you wear it, you drink
Right.
out of it, you write on it, you do whatever it is that you do. That's the tangible element. So that's the only tangible element. It's a great conversation starter. You're wearing a t-shirt, you're wearing a backpack, and you're in the lift in your apartment. It says, hey, you work for this organization.
Right.
That's a great conversation starter, right?
Right.
So that's where merchandise has become very, very important. And if you travel internationally, every single business has a merchandise division. If you
Right.
go to a tiny little home run bakery, they have a
Right.
section on their wall where there is merchandise. You can buy their t-shirts and all
Right.
of that kind of stuff, right? So swag or merchandise has always played a very, very important role. I started my business because of an April Fool's prank
Right.
that I played because of
Right.
merchandise I got, right? And I'm
Right.
an absolute merchandise geek. When I
Right.
travel to US, I make sure I get Friends merchandise. When I go to Paris, I make sure I get, wherever I go, I love merchandise. I love Universal Studios. So Shrek
Right.
is my favorite character. So I drink out of a mug, so I'm that kind of a guy. And I feel there is a very strong emotion that can be associated with that. So corporate gifts
Right.
has gone beyond just a feel good factor. It's
Mm-hmm.
gone on to become a very, very important tool to
Right.
improve employee engagement and for brand building. And
Interesting.
that's something which has become even more important in a
Right.
current situation where we are working remotely and
Right.
everything that we do is virtual. So think about it, right? So earlier in a pre-COVID situation, when a new employee joins the organization, what is he likely to be excited about?
Right.
Hey, wow, this is my campus, this is my
Right.
building, I have a cafeteria, I have a gym, look at all these
Right.
people, they're cool. Now what are you doing when a new joins the organization? Is basically staring at a screen, right?
Right.
So he changed the laptop from the previous organization and has got a new laptop, but basically he's sitting at the same place, and that whole experience of joining a new organization is gone out of the window. The only way to make it different is send a welcome kit to him where it's got a t-shirt, a mug, a bottle, all of
Right.
those kind of things, and he's holding in its hand, he's showing it off to other people, and he or she is putting it up on LinkedIn and telling the world that I've joined this organization. So that's where merchandise has become very important, and India is waking up to that, and everybody is
Right.
acknowledging that. And but I still feel we are at a very, very nascent stage,
Mhm.
very, very early in the game, and there's a lot that's going to come up in the next few years.
Interesting.
Sure.
Interesting. Interesting. And I think I like what you're saying, right? And in fact, I kind of agree with what you're saying, Srikanth, more importantly. And I think the fact that your employees are your brand ambassadors, and I think it just brings in so much more to. I think it's a very strong extension to the brand, right? From everything that you're doing, right? Your employees carrying your branding, right?
Yes.
I think, and the fact that they are your champions, right?
Yes.
And then they carrying that with them, I think just brings in a very different kind of a credibility, right, to the brand overall. And I kind of completely, buy that particular aspect, right? And my sense is, I think each brand realizes it. I think we are getting to a point where I think the sensitivity is now kind of coming in.
Mm.
And I think kind of COVID has kind of fast tracked this
Yes.
particular bit. Shrikant, I wanted to particularly talk to you about the COVID, situation, right? COVID environment. Now, what has happened is, I mean, I think everybody knows, and each of us know that what has happened, right? I mean, it's largely been work from home last, over 1 year, and I think this is a new normal, right? I think this is here to stay, right? Where
Yes.
a good 40-50% of the staff will always be working from home, right? And I think that's how
Yes.
organizations are going to get designed, right? Uh, how important does this engagement become in an environment like this, right, where there's little touch and feel, right? My
Yes.
sense is, an activity like this should hold a lot more significance, right? Is that something that you're seeing amid your stakeholders, right? Is, for example, HR in an organization equally sensitive to this cause? Is the demand increasing, expanding? What are some of the creative aspects that they're looking at, right? I mean, how is that relationship playing out?
Absolutely. I love the question that you asked, because I thought when the pandemic hit, and
Sure.
when last April, when the lockdown got, last March, actually
Hmm.
2020 March, when the lockdown got enforced, I thought we are done, because corporate gifting is very closely associated with events and conferences, team
Right.
outings, get-togethers, all of these kind of things. And there's a blanket kind of ban on all of these things. So what do we do? So I was thinking that this is the end of Offineeds. We need to just shut down the business and nothing else is going to happen. But
Right.
something very interesting happened in that phase, right? So we realized that suddenly everybody has to work from home, and no homes were equipped to be great working places. So
Right.
what we did is, very quickly, we already had the technology in place. E-commerce, we were kind of building B2B2C
Right.
e-commerce
Right.
for organizations. We were building brand stores and so on. So
Hmm.
what we did is, we realized now everybody needs work from home solutions. They need tables, chairs, headphones,
Right.
Wi-Fi improvement products, mouse, keypads, all
Right.
these kind of things
Hmm.
delivered to their homes.
Right.
And while Amazon and B2C platforms exist, B2B2C, the B2B suppliers don't have a B2C angle to it.
Right.
So that's where we created something called thehomeoffice.in, which is an e-commerce solution, and targeted it specifically for organizations. We created a lot of kind of points and a lot of corporate discount programs and
Right.
everything, and the corporates absolutely loved it.
Right.
Something we realized when that happened, and that kept us afloat for a good 6 months, and it's created a brand new business vertical for us, which is
Right.
rocking on its own, right? But
Right.
what we learned is, we realized work from home is here to stay, and
Right.
organizations need a platform to be able to reach out physical merchandise to employees' homes.
Right.
So home delivery is going to be the key thing.
Hmm.
And um, and a lot of technology started springing up on how to do conferences, how to
Right.
do rewards and recognition platforms, how to do trainings remotely, how to do a lot of those kind of things. But everything was pure software driven. So it's about
Hmm.
soft services, it's about everything that you can do
Right.
remotely. But there were not many organizations who can tell you that I can send these physical goods to homes. And the response that you get when you send something physical to employees' homes is just mind blowing, right? And you don't have to believe me. Just look at the posts that are there on LinkedIn.
Right.
And we did a very interesting study about a couple of months back. It's called the New Joinee Welcome Kit Impact Report 2021. And what we did is we studied 111 posts of people putting up saying, hey, I joined this organization and this is a new joinee kit which I got.
Right.
And we saw, you will not believe it, we studied a lot of things. Okay, we studied the post engagement. We saw one of the things which we saw is the engagement growth rate. That means if I post an engagement, if I post something on LinkedIn today, and the next post that I put was about the new joinee welcome kit, the average growth rate in engagement is 74x, 76x, or something like that. Right. That is the average that we saw across these things. So that tells you that, you know, in a world where we are moving to more remote and more virtual, physical goods have a big role to play. Absolutely. And the kind of emotions that you get when somebody gets it is just amazing. And it's the best way. You can always say that, you know, we care about our employees, but when you send a goodie pack to an employee's home, the emotion and the connection that they have with the organization is just totally different at another level altogether. And let me tell you something which happened when the second wave hit, right? When the second wave hit, I thought, okay, nobody wants to talk about gifts because, you know, there is a lot of issues in the family. It's a very sensitive matter and those kind of things, right? And we realized that organizations wanted to send safety packs to their employees' homes. And there was another opportunity. I might sound like a very, you know, commercial.
But you're not. I think you're not. You're just sounding very sensitive. I mean, organizations are sounding very sensitive.
Yeah. So what we did is we started making a get well soon and kits, safety kits. We started putting oximeters, BP monitors, and thermometers, and all of these kind of things, green tea and honey, and some masks and sanitizers, all of these things. And we started making packs, and the number of customers who bought these packs and started sending it to employees' homes was amazing. And that raised that you talk about empathy a lot, right? For an organization to display empathy at scale is very difficult. And merchandise is a great way to do that. I'm not saying merchandise is the only way. You can also do sessions, events, and trainings, and all of those kind of things. But merchandise says it like nothing else does, right? So that's the thing about merchandise. And once you experience it, right, it's a kick. You just have to keep doing it, and you will realize that it's far cheaper, far more effective, and far more impactful. And the results that it gives are really amazing in the form of more engagement, in the form of references of other people who can join the organization, in the form of brand building and the community building within the organization. It's just phenomenal. I have to share this report with you, and you're going to see we have done engagement analytics, we have done cost analytics of the kits that have been sent, we have done ROI analytics, and it's mind-blowing. If you compare it with running digital marketing ads versus giving out merchandise, you will realize giving out merchandise is far cheaper and far more effective.
Srikanth, I am excited, right? I would love to have, you know, my hands onto the report. I think that's definitely there. But, you know, just coming to your point, right, what you highlighted, right? I think 2 points, right? One is, of course, you know, I have had many people on my timeline, you know, who shared the merchandising, for example, that they got, right? Possibly because of certain work that they did, some recognition that they got, right? And and you're absolutely right. I think it was amazing. The fact that the closer community could come and celebrate it with them was absolutely phenomenal. It just brought in a very different kind of, you know, a relationship, right? It brought in a very different kind of depth in the relationship that employees possibly had with the organization. I think that was number one. Number two, I think I saw a lot of people who are new joinees in organizations, and I think organizations actually continue to hire many people. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, I'm talking to a lot of CXOs, you know, who were telling us that, you know, they've expanded their teams almost double the capacity, right? And they haven't had the chance to actually go out and meet people. And some of this has had an absolutely phenomenal excitement and result, right, in terms of engagement. And I think that's been. I completely agree with what you're saying, right? And like I said, right, I would love to have a look at the report. Srikanth, 2 things, right? Now, I would love to know more about how's the performance been, right, on the business side of things, right, and in the last, say, 1.5 years, I mean, which is the piece that you've been most excited about in the last 1.5 years?
Yeah, so what's been very exciting is B2B generally has been an ignored segment, right? And especially if it involves physical products. Some tech-based products have done reasonably okay. And with the exception of Udaan and maybe India Mart and a bunch of companies which deal with which are still tech but deal with physical products. Most
Sure.
of the other segment has been ignored. So we got the opportunity to become a B2C
Right.
organization
Right.
because of this. So earlier, if we had, say, a company would place an order for 1,000 t-shirts or backpack or something, we'd bulk deliver it to their organization. But
Right.
now we are doing home delivery. So we improved our game. We changed the way our processes. We were able to redo our logistic. We actually had to do everything.
Right.
Change our mindset, change our processes, change our warehouse, change the way we
Right.
work, change our logistic partners, change the packaging, just about everything. And we started doing home deliveries. And the game changer was we started offering our customers 100% guaranteed home deliveries.
Right.
Right now, to be able to do that, an organization mostly has to partner with a courier company or the vendor. There's a lot of confusion who takes ownership, because when you're
Right.
sending packages to individual homes, there are going to be breakages, there are going to be thefts, there are going to be damaged goods, there are going to be loss of consignment. All the Who takes ownership of this? That's a
Absolutely.
gray area which is there. So
Yeah.
we started offering 100% guaranteed home delivery to organizations, and that was a true game changer. And we set processes in place to make sure that that is happening. We started building dashboards to be able to track this. There was a
Right.
lot of technology integration to make sure that the communication is going out to organizations. The organization is able to see one single dashboard on what
Right.
is happening on their orders. And then once the COVID started, we started following proactive steps to make sure that the package is COVID safe. We started spraying
Right.
some
Interesting.
safety sprays on it, which
Right.
gives the package a 7-day protection, so that even during transit
Right.
the package does not get contaminated. And now we are, as we speak, we are currently exploring um, 100% eco-friendly packaging. So we have found
Very
alternatives for
interesting.
packaging tapes which are made out of paper. We have found alternatives for bubble wraps which are made out of paper. There's a lot of
Right.
things that we have done, and we are committed to becoming a 100% eco-friendly packaging company. And a lot of companies are wanting to do that, right? So
Right.
there's a lot of e-commerce pack. You get covers every day and you don't know what
Right.
to do with that. So at least we are hoping that the gift that your company sends is easy to dispose. You don't have to carry some guilt on your head. So
That's
learning all of these things has helped us evolve as a company that
right.
is we are able to stand out of the competition, and we are able to way ahead of the competition, and we
Right.
become partners with organization. And we're talking about brand building. We're not just talking about I'll offer you a better price kind of
Right.
thing, right? So that's something that's happened. And overall, business wise, we've grown, I think, pre-COVID to the COVID era, despite a drop in activities and so on. We've been able to grow almost 60 to 70%. And this year we are all set to double that further. And we're growing quite aggressively.
Wonderful.
Some fun fact for you. In the
Yeah. Yeah.
last
Totally.
8 to 9 months, we've shipped out little over 1 lakh parcels to individual homes, and we've
Wow.
covered all states and union territories across India. And we've sent some abroad also. But in India, every single thing from Lakshadweep to
Right.
Andaman Nicobar Islands to Manipur, the Seven Sisters, Jammu and Kashmir, you name it, we've sent to all of these places. So that's been an
Very
exciting.
very interesting. Shrikant, I love the energy, right? And I love it more importantly because, so Offineeds has been a bootstrapped venture, right? I'm going to talk more about that, right? But before I step into that zone, what I want to talk about is that, this is a very creative process, right? I mean, you look at, there are many options, and some of the options you kind of highlighted, right? That actually organizations can go and actually start to procure from there and so on and so forth, right? But this is a very creative process, right? And I think this requires you to be agile, right? This requires you to understand the organization at a deeper level, right? This requires you to understand the complexities that they deal with, right? And then come up with solutions. How do you ensure that there is there are solutions that are created which are relevant for that environment, right? I mean, uh, what is the team construct, right? How do you institutionalize this process, right? Or is this something which is a very trend focused process, right? That this is trending, that is trending, this is the opportunity, this is the season, right? And then that entire blend comes together. I want to understand the creative process that goes into it, right? Because your engagement and your relationship with these organizations is far deeper, right? And is much more meaningful, right? And I think you're playing a role of an equal stakeholder in the game, right? And a very reliable partner, right? So, tell me a little more about the creative process.
Okay, so I'll address this in 2 or 3 parts. Most
Sure.
people don't understand how B2B works. It's like
Right.
what you rightly said, it's relationship driven. There are multiple decision makers,
Sure.
there are too many stakeholders, and there is a lot of liability clause in place. There is a lot of opportunity for data theft to happen, and there are a lot of other things which are there in play beyond just
Right.
the product itself. So it's
Right.
we are fortunate. We have about 16 years of experience. We have dealt with 2,000 plus large corporations, right?
Right.
With thousands and even lakhs of employees. So we understand that space pretty well.
Mhm.
The second thing is we've always been a employee focused organization, and not just for our clients. We believe, because we do these kind of things, right? So we are a great. I'd like to believe we are a great organization to
Right.
work with. We have people who are happy doing what they're doing. So once you have people who are happy doing what they're doing, and there is an environment, there is a space that's been created which allows them to become their best. Creativity and imagination just comes out at its best. And first, that you need to have that team. You need to have an understanding of your customers and the kind of people you are selling to, and what are the kind of challenges they're facing. And then the key thing is listening to the customers. Actually, everything that we did came out of just listening to customers, right? And
Right.
listening to customers and taking super fast action. Like
Mhm.
I told about the home office which we created, that came out of a realization that people suddenly need tables and chairs. And it's not just about tables and chairs. It's about
Right.
sending it to their homes, assembling it, and making sure it's comfortable. And these employees might be staying anywhere, right? So how
Right.
do you build that kind of a platform? And then realizing that we created a solution called new joining kits. We got started getting regular inquiries. Then we created a solution called Kit Up by Offineeds,
Right.
where we realized that it's not just about making new joining kits anymore. Customers don't know how many people are joining this week, how many are joining next week. So we created a solution called Kit Up, where we create a custom kit. We hold it in inventory in our warehouse, and
Mhm.
employees can give us addresses at any time they want, and we keep shipping it to them.
Mhm.
So they don't have to worry about who is going to be holding the warehouse, the inventory, all of that kind of stuff, right? We created brand stores. We realized employees are working from home, so
Right.
you might want to have an e-commerce store where employees can buy merchandise, and managers can give out gift vouchers of their own brand store
Right.
in for any requirement. We created Safety by Offineeds, which was a reaction to the second wave which came in. So all this just came because we were listening to what the customers need.
Right.
And instead of just serving that particular need, we created a product out of it. Some of them failed, but the ones which took off were amazing, right? And that's the thing. Don't just solve the symptom. Try to look at the root cause of the symptom, and try to convert that into a product that can be scaled and can be offered to many more customers as well.
Right. But Shrikant, that must be very difficult, right? That must be very difficult. I mean, given that you're dealing with, so many customers, right? And it must be a difficult process, right? To sort of to listen to so much of conversation which is happening, right? So much of noise, right? Different mindset. I think it must be very difficult, right? I want you to talk about one thing that kind of made you extremely uncomfortable, right? One demand that possibly made you extremely uncomfortable. I think it'll be an interesting one to know.
Which made us extremely uncomfortable, is it?
Yeah,
Okay, so uh, see, we created
something
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 called
something you weren't prepared for, right? It just came out,
Event.
right? But you had to deliver.
Yeah, so there are a lot of things like that where customers ask us to deliver something that's not our core expertise. We do all of that all the time. But let me talk about a particular instance where we were in a dilemma whether we want to do this or not. Because what happened is, once the second wave started off, right? We
Right,
we started dealing. I didn't want to get into safety products because that's a borderline, because
right,
a lot of products are getting imported, and in the
right,
in the rush of things we don't know what's the quality, and everybody seems to be doing the mask, and everybody's claiming N95, this, that,
Mhm.
all those kind of things, but nobody knows what is what, right? So we were not sure whether we want to do it, but we dedicated some resources. We knew that was something that needed to be
Right,
done. Customers needed this solution. But there was one product I did not want to really deal with, which was oxygen concentrators,
right,
because I knew there was a lot of fake oxygen concentrators that were going around in the market, and there was a lot of certification issues. And
right,
because that was the need of the hour, everybody was importing concentrators, and it was difficult to tell which is genuine, which is not. And
right,
all customers wanted branded, but the brands don't have stock, and all of that kind of stuff, right?
right,
So that was a tough situation where there was a huge demand for oxygen concentrators,
right,
and there were too many people selling it, but we were not sure whether to do it or not. So we kind of 50-50, we tried to supply some, we tried to support some, and those kind of things, and we kind of burnt our fingers, but at least we made sure that, we didn't want to take that chance, right? It's a matter of life and death for somebody, and
Right.
we wanted to. So what we did is we started connecting the organizations directly with the brands that we knew, and
Right.
we started just bridging the gap. We said, forget the business opportunity here,
Right.
let's just do what we can do in the best interest of what is required, wherever logistic support was required, where we have some offices in other cities and some customers needed some support there. We did whatever best we could, but that was the most sensitive decision that I think I had to take
I
this
get
year.
that.
To And these numbers are big, right? Each concentrator is close to ₹1 lakh.
Yeah.
You sell 100 of those, it's a 1 CR revenue,
Right.
right? So, but that was a conscious decision which we took. We said, look, we are not going to do this chance per dance thing, and we
Right.
will try and
Right.
be as genuine about this as possible, but we don't want to mess with somebody's life or anything like that. So
No,
that was,
I understand. I
yeah,
understand where you're coming from. I think that's a difficult one, and I think there's a lot of that which is happening around this particular time, right?
yes,
And I think
yes,
it's a difficult responsibility to take, right? No, I understand that, Srikanth. I mean, I think that only goes on to say how seriously have you been looking at this entire thing, right? And I think it's also important in business to understand, what responsibility to take and what not to take, right? Srikanth, I want to take a side step, right? And I want to talk about this entire journey that you've had for the last 16 years being bootstrapped, right? And that's a conscious choice that you've made. I mean, of course, there was an attempt that you highlighted right early in the conversation where you wanted to sort of go out raise capital, but I think largely you've essentially operated the bootstrapped. I mean, you built it bootstrap, right? I mean, how is that journey been, right? Of course, you've told us about what you've been through, right? But what are some of those choices that you have to make when you are bootstrapped, right? It's a difficult one, right? It's a difficult one because you have to prioritize many things that are usually very difficult, right?
yeah,
You could have easily solved them with money,
yeah.
but how's that journey been as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so there is the plus and there's the minus, right? So
Right.
there was a time where I felt that I'm really constrained because I don't have enough capital to invest in technology, invest in a lot of things. But what it really meant is I had to do it slowly and I had to do it more cautiously. And
Right.
everything that you could do it super fast and you could afford to make a lot of mistakes, you could
Right.
afford to burn money. There is no question of burning money when it's your own money, right? So
Hmm.
with respect to marketing, with everything, you have to do it cautiously. You have to do it ground up. You have to learn it yourself. Fortunately, I love learning. I love taking on new technology.
Right.
I myself, because of my technology background and because of me being an engineer and my love for marketing, it comes to me quite easily to learn new technology, new products, new
Right.
marketing strategies, and so on. And I've managed. We're kind of lucky. We created an amazing team. We've created
Right.
a great work culture. People have stuck with us through really tough times. So
Right.
I give a lot of credit to the kind of team that we've been able to build. That we've been very nimble, and we've created some world-class solutions at extremely unbelievable costs. Right.
Right.
So just to give you some insight,
No,
we
absolutely.
manage something called official brand store. So we run
Right.
e-commerce stores. These are full-fledged e-commerce stores, right?
Right.
Which have like 150, 200 products custom made with the, I bought this t-shirt on my merchandise, on my company's merchandise store.
Right.
So we run merchandise stores for Lenovo, for Tally, for Infosys, for Bosch, for Redbus, for Flipkart, and a bunch of other companies we run, right? So you probably know the effort that it takes to manage one e-commerce store, right? We
Absolutely.
run at this point of time, parallelly, we're running about 25 different e-commerce stores like that.
Right.
And we have a very small tech team. We have a tech team of 3 people who are
Right.
doing this entire thing, and
Right.
and 1 or 2 design guys and all of that kind of stuff, right? So not having the money to do that forces you to do things in a very different kind of a way, and it forces you to be innovative, it forces you to be nimble, and
Right.
you have to stay profitable. Top line doesn't mean anything unless you can pay
Right.
your salaries at the end of
Absolutely.
the end of the month, right? So that's the I mean, you can look at it as a plus or a minus, but because I'm in a place where I'm comfortable, I'm saying that it's a plus. But yeah, I think it's been good. The good part is you can take some decisions on your own too.
Right.
It's good. I have advisors, I have mentors and everything, but end of the day, I do what I think is right.
Right.
Yeah, so to say, nobody else is can force upon you what needs to be done, and cannot try to do something to speed up the process or anything like
Right.
that, right?
Right.
So that's the kind of freedom which you get, but it's always grass always looks greener on the other side, right?
Right. No, I mean I understand that, right? And I think the biggest thing, and I've had many friends who've been who bootstrap their way, right? And these are founders who are doing phenomenally well, right? Actually, uh, possibly much better vis-a-vis even a Series C funded startup, right?
Mm,
So while of course the revenue numbers are going to be different, right? But they are in a very very different zone, right? And like you said, I think everything that they've done, they've optimized it for profitability, right? And
correct.
it's a very different zone that you operate in, right? I think your mind works in a different way, right? You're not literally looking to solve everything with money, right? So, which is a very typical play
Yeah.
in a funded startup, right? I personally, if you ask me, I wish there are many founders, who sort of build enterprises in a bootstrap manner, because there's a very different kind of value creation that happens when you are sort of operating in that zone, right? But I think one particular point that I find very difficult is that when you are building your business, right, as an entrepreneur, as a founder, right, I think there is a constant temptation, right, wanting to move very fast, right, wanting to do 10 things. With money in the bank, that's a possibility, right? You can very quickly hire people, right? You can
Yeah.
incentivize in the right way. You can possibly, and when I say hire, you can kind of hire them at a substantially large payout, right?
Yes.
Which they're possibly not getting in the industry, right? How did you curb that temptation? I think that's a very difficult one, right? How did you do that?
I kind of fell for that temptation somewhere through the
Oh, you did.
journey, and I burned my fingers big, I went into a lot of debt, and where I thought that's the end of business of Srikanth
Right,
as an entrepreneur. I better quit this, and I need to start looking for a job. But that was not an option because I had huge debt that was piled up and so on, right? So I
right,
learned it the hard way. I'm a guy who's I think I'm quite aggressive, and I want to move things really, really fast. But
right.
somewhere, once you burnt your fingers and once you learned your lessons, right, you don't have much of a choice. Life will teach you some of those lessons. So that's how
I
it's been for me.
right,
But I get what you're saying. But you have to learn to be patient. Where somebody else is saying, "Hey, why don't you just hire this guy?"
right,
And you're talking about, you have to think. You cannot tell them that, dude, I cannot afford to pay so much.
right,
But you have to say, haha, okay, let me think about it, and then you go
right,
back and think about more thrifty ways of doing that or achieving the
right,
same result. Maybe it'll take a little longer, but one philosophy that's worked very well for us is look at employees in a long term position. We've
right,
always say, somewhere I picked up this, that don't use employees to grow your business, use your business to grow your employees. Once you
right,
build and adopt that philosophy, right, and once you show that there is a growth opportunity. So our work culture in our organization is built on these four principles: work hard, learn, grow, have fun. I constantly look at whether we are able to, as an organization, able to deliver this. Once you
right,
offer that, right, and once you start hiring people who align with these four principles, then you're building a good team, and they're there in it for the long run. And there are, despite being a small organization, despite being what you would say that somebody can poach your employees very easily, we have not really had serious problems with people quitting or anything. They generally, you have this, that employees don't trust the owners, and entrepreneurs are always showcased in bad light, right? They
right,
do this, they do that, to they
right,
evade taxes, whatever it is. But we've not had that kind of a situation. We've had people who stuck on with us for 5 years, 10 years. Today I put a
wow,
post actually about a guy who's completed more than 10 years within the organization. And if you visit our website, you will see that the first picture which is there is of an employee who's the top performer of the organization for that particular month. That's how
right,
we've designed it. So we've put employees in the center of the thing, and we've focused on their growth, and we've empowered them. We've always believed in learning and training and things like that. And they evolve. Look, everybody wants to succeed. They want to excel at whatever it is that they do.
right,
If you create an opportunity, create an environment for doing that, I think most people will shine. 80% of people will shine beyond what you can expect. It takes time, and it takes when you don't have money, you have time, right? So
right.
that's what you do. For us, I think even if I get money now, I'm going to do it the same way.
Shrikant, you've literally walked me into my next question, right? You've actually covered quite a bit of it, right? But my next question essentially was around the team, right? In an environment, right? And you operate in all the hotbeds of of technology, right, where all the funded startups are operating out of, right, to retain talent must be a massive challenge, right? I mean, there's only so much that you can do as a business leader, right? You can, I mean, give them the culture. There are certain things that are in your hand, but there are certain things that are not in your hand, right?
Yeah.
Employee aspiration, for example, is not in your hand, right? And given the opportunity in many of these new upcoming businesses, right, it must be a difficult one, right? Irrespective of whatever you try and do, right? How is that for you, right? I mean, how do you deal with that, right?
Right.
With that pressure, right?
Mm.
While it could not, I think there is another perspective to it, and that perspective is that, while there could not be so much of it at their end, you tend to, or as a founder, one tends to build it up in his mind or her mind, right? Think that, what if these guys leave? There's a sense of insecurity that you're dealing with
Yeah.
constantly. How do you manage that?
Look, one thing is, it's a very difficult question. It's not something that you can answer, but I've kind of taken on a philosophy where I truly believe in using the business to help people grow, and they see that
Right,
over a period of time. It's not just a misstatement, or it's not just something
right,
like like the guy who I speak about in today's post, which I put up about somebody who completed 10 years. He heads production, okay, and
right.
when he joined the organization 10 years back, he was at a very very low pay scale, and he was joined as a operations executive. So we
Right.
believe in growing from within than
Interesting.
hiring somebody. So I try to, so when they join they see 1x 2x 3x 4x 5x growth within the organization, in terms
Hmm.
of learning, in terms of the opportunities that they get to work on, the kind of challenges that they get to take on, as
Right,
well as from a financial point of view.
right.
So at least they will not ditch you. Most of my teams, not that they will stick on, not everybody will stick on for 10 years 15 years
Right.
or so on, but when they have to leave, they it's a relatively transparent organization, right? They
Hmm.
are aware. I don't try to hide when we have cash flow issues, or when we have certain challenges where we've lost a big client, or any other thing. Everybody is aware about it, and
Right.
they feel very involved in the organization that they are running, right? So they will not ditch you. They will not, the typical things that you hear about don't happen very often within the organizations. So there are people who say, look, I need to move on because of this particular reason, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you 3 months of notice. I know the contract says 30 days, but I'm going to give you 3 months notice. Let me
Right.
let me train. It's my responsibility. And even after I quit, if there is something that you need, I'm available on weekends, any of those kind of things. So that's the kind of commitment and the sense of connectivity that they're able to feel. Of course, this is something that you can do at a small scale. We are an
Right.
organization right now at about 60 employees. Once you
Hmm.
grow beyond that, it's going to be a little difficult. But even then,
Right.
if you pick your winning horses, you may not be able to build that kind of a rapport with every single person in the organization. But the key members of the organization, you build that kind of a rapport, build that kind of a relationship, and build that, show. Once you tell them that, look, you're important to the organization, and once you know that you've given them opportunities when they needed it the most, they will stay with you, or they'll be with you when you need them the most. That's what I
Right.
think.
Interesting. Interesting. Shrikant, typically what happens, and when you're a bootstrap entrepreneur, right, vis-a-vis a funded entrepreneur, life is very different, right? For somebody who's kind of funded, right, there is a lot of media, there is a lot of
Yeah.
glamour, there's a lot of sexiness around it, right?
Yes.
And a bootstrap entrepreneur is essentially somebody who's just trying to fight it out, right? On that day, right? Trying to meet the ends meet, right? At least early on for the first couple of years, it's a difficult one, right? Getting the product market fit, right? Getting the orders to be
Yeah.
delivered, having lesser of those issues, right? And then going back home saying that, listen, it's been an all right day.
It's been
Hopefully,
all right.
yeah, it's been an all right day, and hopefully things will continue to be the same as we go along, and praying for the best to happen, right? And godly intervention to a certain extent, right? And that's largely because of the nature of the two organizations are very very different, right? It's a lonely road, right?
Yeah.
And the role of family becomes very important, right?
Very important.
Personally, founders that I've known who bootstrapped, right? I think one thing that their resilience has been a function of a very strong family support, right? How do you view that, right? As an entrepreneur. Now that I don't mean to say that for funded founders that's not the case, right? But funded founders are dealing with a very different kind of environment, right?
Right.
There is a certain validation that has come in. There is a certain recognition that has already come in, right? Which essentially works as your booster to
Cushion.
keep performing, right? And
Yeah.
I think there's a booster, right, as your glucose to keep performing, right? It also gives you a certain rush, but that's not really the case in a
Yeah.
bootstrap entrepreneur, right? So, how important do you think is the role of the family, right? I mean, of course, we know the answer, right? but how important is
No, I think you hit the nail in the head. That's the most important thing. It's not easy for an entrepreneur to stay sane, right? You need an amazing family who's willing to put up with you, put up with your quirkiness, put up with all your challenges, put up with uh, sometimes insane working hours to
right,
your turmoils and bouts of depression or whatever that
right,
those phases, all of those things, right?
right,
So I'm lucky in that sense that my wife, she's a working professional and she's
right,
extremely tolerant of of me, and she's very supportive and
right,
encouraging. And the extended family, friends and my parents and my relatives understand this. Initially they didn't in the initial
right,
few years, but after that, once they see that this is a choice. Initially there were things like, are you sure you want to do this? Why don't you try
right,
it part time? All of that stuff. But
right,
once they know this is, I've been lucky in that sense that they've been very, very encouraging, and that's very, very important, right? You sometimes you tend to think, there were times when I thought, okay, I just need to keep work
right,
16 hours, 18 hours, 20 hours. The longer I work, the better it is. But then
right,
somewhere you realize that that's not what it is about. You have to find
right,
that balance. You have to have your hobbies. As I said, I love traveling. I take a
right,
lot of holidays. I think pre-COVID, I used to take something close to 35 to 45 days of holidays in a year, and I would travel and not allow work to impact and so on. So that balance is required, because when you
right,
have another hobby, a passion, a family to go back to, you get recharged and come to work. That's when you're able to perform even better than just work, 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 work. That's not going to happen. Funded or
right.
not, I think um, a great family and a great support system is extremely, extremely important to stay an entrepreneur in the long course.
Right. That's a good point, Shrikant. Shrikant, we're towards the end of the conversation, right? Bootstrapped always or funded, right? What would Srikanth Acharya prefer?
It's not like that. I don't know if I have a straight answer to that.
Right,
It's about finding the right investors. I think it's not about taking investment from just about anybody. And what are you going to do with those funds? After having been in business for so
right,
long, and I've kind of invested in some small business myself, and I have to be able to look at it from the investor's point of view, right?
right,
And why are they making that investment? If it aligns with my philosophy of doing business, the way like if there are investors who are like super aggressive and who says just hire and fire, and
right,
that doesn't align with me. So you need investors who are aligned with your way of thinking. Your investors who are, you should understand why are they getting into investment.
right,
There has to be a partnership of values. There has to be a partnership of there has to be some kind of a collaborative kind of an approach. Then it makes sense. But just money is not going to really change your business. That's something I believe. I mean, there are a lot of people who proved otherwise, but I believe that smart money, intelligent money is more important than just money. So I would
right,
I'm not averse to investment, and there's nothing wrong with that. It completely depends on who is investing, why are they investing, and what's the
right.
outcome. If it's helping the company grow, then why not?
Interesting, Srikanth. Interesting, Srikanth. My last question, right? What will be your say two or three pointers, right, for any founder out there to ensure that he or she continues to, balance their life, right, to have that sanity? What will be those two or three points? What should they do to sort of ensure that that remains intact?
Yeah, first, I think that's a great question to end with. I would love to take that. And the first thing that I would say is, don't kill your hobby. Okay,
Right,
retain your hobby and make sure it's thriving just like your business is. Whatever it is your hobby, whether it's cooking, reading, writing, traveling, photography, whatever it is, music or something like that, let that, give it a reasonable amount of time, because the energy that you get from that is going to pour back
right,
into running your own business. Second thing that I would say is that have a business that you're enjoying. You should
right,
enjoy meeting your customers. You should enjoy going to the office. You should enjoy doing every bit of what you're doing. There'll be small parts of business that you don't enjoy doing. Try to build a team with complementing skills. Don't build a team with the similar kind of a skill set. Build
right.
a team with complementing skill sets, and they will take care of things that you are weak at, right? So
Hmm.
that way, um, you're enjoying going to work every single day. It shouldn't stress you out that, oh, it's Monday again. If you
Right,
say, wow, it's Monday again, then you're in the right business, right? So
right,
that's what I would say. Retain a hobby and get into a business that you enjoy doing. And I'm an avid learner. If you you have to be a learner. There is no two
Right.
ways about that, right? You have to keep on learning because the world is changing at such a rapid pace that there's no way that something which worked 2 years back is going to work now.
Right.
Something that worked 6 months back is not going to work now. So you have to be quick to change. You have to be able to learn very, very fast. And I think that is something that people are not doing enough, and that's where they lose the mojo.
Srikanth, it was a pleasure to have you with us. I mean, I couldn't have asked for a better conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for taking the time out. I think each point that you highlighted just makes so much more sense, right? And I think a lot of these points have been very rationally put, right? I think logic behind every single decision that you take is just so much more important, right? I think it's not about being bootstrapped or not bootstrapped, right, or funded, right? I think it's just about kind of rationalizing it, right, in the right way, right, where you're very clear of the outcome, right, of that act. But I enjoy my conversations with with entrepreneurs who bootstrap largely because of the way they think, right? You're constantly thinking hacks, you're constantly trying to optimize for profit, which is phenomenal, right? You're not really trying to solve it for money, right? Because money has its own challenges, right? But I think if you're trying to do certain things which and building a DNA in a certain form and way,
Yeah.
I think that goes on for much longer, right, than solving for money. And I think that's something that excites me about each conversation that I have with founders who've been bootstrapping all throughout. Srikanth, it was a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining it.
Thank you, Ashu. It's been great fun. I really enjoyed this conversation. I've been following Asia Tech Journal for a long time, and it's really a privilege to be here. I had an amazing time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.